Hello and welcome back to DFM TV. I am Dan the Firestick Man, your source for entertainment. And on today's video, we're going to be talking about the most common problem that causes your Fire Stick to buffer. Whether it's a Fire Stick, Fire Cube, Fire TV, anything that starts with fire, we're going to go ahead and address it in this video. Again, this is the most common problem. Now, there are other videos out there that are going to talk about turning off features, and they're going to talk about clearing cache and force stop on applications. Those are all great things that you can do. I will be making updated videos about cleaning up your Fire Stick and maintaining it good to help with any buffering problems. But today, it's going to be focused on the most common problem that causes your Fire Stick to buffer. Now, and that's going to be your internet connection, whether you're connected to the 2.4 gigahertz or the 5 gigahertz. Now, I'm going to give you guys a quick, I promise, really quick crash course on how the internet connections work with your Fire Stick, the different channels that your router might provide depending on your internet provider. So stay tuned, watch the whole video. I promise you'll learn something today, and who knows, by the end of this video, you may eliminate your buffering issues with your Fire Stick. So let's get started. The first thing that we want to do is we want to click on the home button. Once we're in the home screen, we're going to work our way to the right here, all the way to that gear. That gear is the settings on your Fire Stick. So we're going to work our way there. And then once we're over it, you're going to hit down. And you're going to work your way to the right to where it says network. So once you're over network, let's click on that. And now, I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to show you guys how you can tell what connection you're into. But first, I'm going to talk to you about the different channels that you get. This is my own personal router. This is not a router that's given to me by my internet provider, which I happen to have Spectrum. This is not their equipment. This is my own personal equipment because of the setup that I have in my house. I prefer to have my own equipment. Now, for my own equipment, I created 3 channels for my router. I have a channel that says Squid Games 2X, as you can see here. I have another channel called Squid Games 5X. And then I have another channel that's just it's called Squid Games. Now, that's what I decided to name it at the time that the show was very popular. But nonetheless, let me tell you what each channel does. The first one here that says Squid Games 2X that I happen to be connected to right now, this is my 2.4 gigahertz frequency. Okay? The second channel that you see here that says 5X is my 5G, my 5GHz frequency. And then the third channel that says Squid Games by itself, that is called my smart channel, because that channel will go from 2.4 to 5G on its own, depending if there's an internet interruption with one or the other. Okay, now some of you, depending on your internet provider and depending on the router that they provided you, you may have one that has 2 channels like the 2.4 and one like the 5, like the 5G. So you will have 2 channels like this. Most likely, most of the time, you won't have one that says 2.4. You'll have one that'll say, for instance, Squid Games with no numbers, and then one that will say Squid Games 5G. The one that doesn't have any numbers is usually your 2.4 gigahertz frequency. Okay? Now, most of you, or not most of you, but a lot of you will click when you're setting up your Fire Stick for the first time. You will click on the first one that you see, not look for any network, because sometimes they're not next to each other like you see mine. Sometimes they're spread out, and in order to see it, you need to click on where it says See All Networks, which is what I'm going to do right now so you guys can see. If I click on See All Networks and I start scrolling down, I don't only get what's in my home, but I get my neighbors and I get everything else. And sometimes your networks can be mixed in everybody else's. So you might see one network on the top that's yours, and then see a second channel that also belongs to you, but that's all spread out like you see them moving here, up and down. So I'm going to go back to the top. Now, the one thing that I want to mention, that if you have your Fire Stick connected to the 2.4 gigahertz, that is a very bad thing to do, because it is a slow connection, and that in itself is the most common problem to your Fire Stick buffering. A lot of people think there's issues with the Fire Stick, or that you don't have enough internet speed with your provider. That's not true. It could be just a matter of changing the channel to the 5G. Now, for those of you that do have multiple channels, this is the way that you look for them. See All Networks, and you can see all the networks. You're looking for something that has the same name, but maybe with a number added to it at the end of it. Same name, and then when it comes to the password, if you're using the one that's on the side of your router, it's going to be the same exact password for one channel and the other. Okay, unless you have personally made changes to the password, on one channel, then they should both match up. Okay, so look on the side of your router for the password if you haven't made any adjustments yourself. Now, if you happen to have one channel, let me go down to it right here. This, I'm going to highlight it better. If this channel right here, you have no name to it, that's the only channel, you looked at all the networks and that's the only channel that belongs to you, you know that already. Then what you got provided was with a smart router, and that smart router, it's going to go ahead and jump from the 2.4 to the 5G on its own. But here's the problem. Let's say that you are, when you first hooked it up, your Firestick was running great, you were connected to the 5G. But now all of a sudden your Firestick's buffering. You want to know what frequency is your Firestick currently on right now. So what you want to do is, once you go into network, and you're going to go ahead and look at your remote. This is what your remote looks like. This button right here is the play pause button. I want you to tap it one time. When you do, go ahead and do it now. It's going to show you connected status of, and it's going to say the name of your network. And this part right here is the most important part. Does it say 2.4 GHz or is it going to say 5 GHz? If yours is currently connected to the 2.4 GHz, that is the most common problem with your buffering issues, especially for those that are not getting a lot of internet in the first place because you live out in the country, you just don't have a great internet provider. By your Firestick switching over to the 2.4 on its own, or by you mistakenly connecting it to that channel, then you are getting the lowest of the lowest internet speed that you can possibly get, thus buffering issues on the Firestick. Now, if you have two channels, so I'm going to hit the back button once, and if you're like me that have another channel that's specifically for the 5G, then what you want to do is you want to connect to that one. Obviously, you're going to put in your password. Mine's already saved on my Firestick, so I'm going to connect to that one. And when you hit the play pause button, again, let me show you the remote. Here's the play pause button underneath the home button. You tap that one time, and when you do, it should say status connected of the name of your Wi-Fi, and right here you'll see where it says 5 GHz. Don't worry about the 5X. That's the name of my channel. It's not going to show that on your end. On your end, it's going to see 5 GHz or 2.4. What you want your Firestick to be always on is the 5 GHz. Now, here's the other scenario. You have a smart router that your internet provider gave you, the one that does it on its own. But when you went to check on it, you notice that it doesn't say 5 GHz. What it actually says, and I'm going to go to mine again, it actually says this, 2.4 GHz. So Dan, how do I change it and how do I bring it back to 5G, and why did this happen in the first place? Well, let's answer why it happened. When you have a 5G frequency and a 2.4 in one channel that does both, if there's any issue whatsoever with the 5G, the Firestick itself, it's programmed to jump over to the next available connection that's better than the 5G. So if the 5G gets interrupted and it's pretty bad, then it jumps over to the 2.4. The only problem with that, I mean, it's great because the way it sees it is it's better to have some internet than no internet at all, since you're having issues with the 5G. But the problem is that sometimes it's just little hiccups that happens with the 5G. Most of the time, you don't even notice that you're having issues. But the system knows it. Okay, well, 5G is having hiccups. Let's jump over to the 2.4. Well, when the 2.4, when it's in the 2.4, unless you start having issues with the 2.4, it won't jump back to the 5G. So most of the time, it will stay there. You still get some internet. You'll get the home screen, but when you're trying to watch movies and shows, you're buffering and buffering and buffering and buffering. And this is the reason why, is because you're in the 2.4 frequency. So how do we get it back to the 5G if I only have one channel that does both? Well, the answer is to reset your modem and router. You need to reset your modem and router so it can start pulling up the new connection. And the last step that you do is to reset your Firestick. So let's talk about modems and routers real quick. When you have one, now if you have, talking about both scenarios, because it could happen where you have a modem router combo where it's just one unit. You don't have a router, everything's built into one. All you need to do is look behind it. You're not going to pull any Ethernet cables out or coax cables. You're going to go for the power supply, and it's usually at the very bottom. You're going to pull that power cord, or if it's easier for you to follow the cord to the outlet and pull it out of the outlet, give it about 3 to 4 seconds and plug it right back in. Pull it out of the back, plug it back in, if you're going to do it from here, and then you're going to look for the lights. And this is assuming you only have one unit, okay? You're going to look for the lights, and you're going to wait. You're going to wait until all the lights are where they need to be, how they were originally before you let it go. Most important one is the internet, and for most of the internet providers, that needs to be a solid light. So if it's blinking, you need to wait until it's solid. Again, that's for most internet providers. My suggestion is for you to look at your lights prior to unplugging it, and however you see them is how you need to see them again before you jump to the next step. Okay, now the next step will be to restart the Fire Stick, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But before I do that, I'm going to show you the same thing for those that have the scenario that have a modem and a router separate, kind of like me right here. I have a modem and I have a router separate. This is my router, okay? Well, no one that I have laying around. Okay, modem, router. If you don't know which one is which, guys, you need to call your internet provider and they'll tell you exactly which one is which if you have different ones. Everyone is different, but this happens to be my set here. Modem, router. Okay, if you happen to have this situation, what you're going to do is look for the modem first, and you're going to unplug that modem the same way I just showed you how to do a minute ago. Outlet or the back of the thing here. And then 3 to 4 seconds, you're going to plug that modem back in. Okay, as soon as you plug it back in, you're going to go ahead and grab your router, and the same thing, the power cord. You're going to pull the power cord from behind it, or you can go to the outlet and pull it from the outlet, but you're not going to plug it back in. You're just going to leave it out. And you're going to leave it out until you see all the lights on the modem itself light up the way they were before you unplugged it. Once you see all those lights, it may take a minute or two, sometimes 3 or 4 minutes, depending on your internet provider. But once you see that go all the way through and you see all the lights on, then you're going to go ahead and plug back in your router. Again, you're not removing any cables, any internet cable, just the power cord. Out and back in, or from the outlet, unplug it and plug it back in. Once you do that, okay, once you see all the lights come back on the way they should on the modem, then you plug in your router, and then again, you're going to wait. You're going to see a series of lights depending on your router. If you have a router that has no lights, kind of like mine has no visible lights to it, then you're going to wait about 3 to 4 minutes. Just wait it out. Because what we're doing here is we waited for the modem to get a full internet connection going through it first. And then it's going to take that full internet connection and move it over to your router. For those of you that unplug both of them and plug them both back in, I guess you can do that. Would it work? Yes, but this is from technicians from cable companies. They always say that it's better to do it this way, the way that I'm showing you. Why? Because a lot of times when you unplug both of them and plug them back in, this router will connect back to this modem prior to this modem getting an internet connection through it. And that in itself can cause problems with glitching, internet interruptions, the modem and the router not communicating the way they should. So what we're doing is we're making sure there's an internet connection coming through the modem first, and then after we know that the lights are on and the internet's running through the modem, we plug in the router. The router takes a lot less time to connect to the modem, but when it does, it's connecting to a modem that already has internet running through it, and that internet now is running through your router, and then that internet runs out through your house. Now that you've done that, okay, you're going to go back to your Fire Stick, and this is what we're going to do. You're going to go ahead and hit the home button on your Fire Stick, and then you're going to work yourself back to the settings, which is that gear right here. And this time we're going to go straight down to where it says My Fire TV, and we're going to go ahead and click on that. Once we click on My Fire TV, we're going to work our way down to where it says Restart. You're going to click on Restart. You're going to hit left, and you're going to click on Restart a second time. And what that's going to do is going to restart your Fire Stick. So your Fire Stick is going to power off, and then it's going to power back on. When it powers back on, it's going to go take you back to your home screen. It may say just for a few seconds, home is currently unavailable. Just be a little bit patient, guys. Give it a minute or two because it's looking for that internet connection. Some of your Fire Stick may jump right into that internet connection, and it will take you right to the home screen like you see here. But if it says home is currently unavailable, just give it a moment. Relax. It's going to be okay. Once it finds that internet connection, it's going to be your home screen like this. And at that point, it should have jumped over to the 5G. And how do we know for sure? We're going to go ahead and hit the home button. We're right there on the home screen. We're going to go back to the right to settings. Click on settings. and then we're going to go down and we're going to go back to the right to network. Click on network, and what we're going to do, your top one, again, this is assuming that you have the channel that does both. Mine, I'm currently on the 2X, which is the 2G. I'm changing it over to the 5G, but once you're on over that particular network that's on the very top, you're going to hit the play pause button, and then it should say connection status of, it's the name of your Wi-Fi, and it should say 5GHC, and then your problem is solved. You should go back to watching your shows, and you should get a lot less buffering. Now, of course, there's other factors. There's the cache, and there's the settings and certain things that you can do to improve the performance. But overall, this is the most common issue to your Fire Stick having buffering problems. I hope that I was very clear and detailed about that. If you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to leave it in the comments below. And please continue to support me in this channel by subscribing, by ringing the bell notification, by clicking that thumbs up. I really appreciate that. You have been watching DFM TV. I am Dan the Firestick Man, your source for entertainment. Until the next video, happy streaming.